Hello and welcome. Welcome everybody to the first episode of SAPA Academic Office podcast. I'm Mazin Khalid, the director of SAPA's Career Development Office, and I'm very excited to kick off this series where we bring valuable discussions to our members, especially those navigating career development, education, professional growth in the US. Today, we're diving into a topic that's very close to many of us, and I think it was very imperative that this would be the kickstart of our podcast. And the topic for today is how parents can best support their children's education. Most of our SAPA members, myself included, are foreign born physicians who moved to the US for residency and now raising their kids in an educational system that might be very different from what we experienced. To help us navigate this, I have a very special guest, our own member of the board of directors. She's the lead of the youth chapter, Ola Mohamed, who has the unique and inspiring educational journey that she was willing to share with us today gracefully. Welcome, Ola.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum, guys. Thank you for having me, Dr. Mazin. I am very, very pleased and happy to be here.
Thank you, Ola. I mean, Ola is a first generation American whose parents immigrated here. She's taken an incredible path, earning a bachelor's of art in sociology in University of Florida, where she was deeply involved in leadership, mentorship, and service organizations. She then pursued a Master of Science in Biomedical Sciences at Baylor University to transition into medicine. She's since gained experience in clinical research, medical scribing, community service, and now she's applying to medical school with multiple offers in hand. She also, as I said, serves as the youth liaison and community service chair for SAPA, advocating for the well-being of Sudanese communities in the US and in Sudan. It's a tremendous accomplishment for your age, Ola. We're all very proud, very impressed. And I hope that my own daughters one day will follow similar path and have similar success.
Inshallah, I hope they'll be better than me. Hopefully, with this series, they'll surpass me and do it a lot quicker than I did. So I'm excited, and I know the future is bright for everybody else. The future of SAPA youth and everyone who's involved with SAPA is truly an amazing thing to see. So I'm excited.
Thank you, Ola. So let's start with your story first. You originally studied sociology at University of Florida, as I said, and then you transitioned into biomedical sciences. Can you walk us through your journey? What inspired that shift?
Yes. So when I first started the University of Florida, this was back in 2016. And then I graduated in 2020. Um, as I was navigating through college, I think it's difficult as a first generation student, just from any background, regardless if you're Sudanese or not. So a lot of these students come in with their parents already going to university in the United States, so they already have an upper hand over everybody else who's this is their first time, and this is my first time moving away from home. So it was a very unique experience. So I had to try and figure this out, navigate. And the difference between like high school and going to university: in high school your teachers are on top of you, telling, okay, make sure you turn in your homework today, okay, make sure you submit this project. In college you're fully responsible for your own actions and making sure that you submit your paperwork, make sure you're submitting your homework assignments, your quizzes, exams. Nobody's going to remind you. So you're fully independent at this point. And I think just given the rigor of the University of Florida, I guess I was a little taken aback because it's a big shift from whatever studies you're learning in high school. But I managed to do well, alhamdulillah. And I did sociology. I didn't know exactly what major to do. So I bounced around a couple times and then I ended up with sociology. And then when I was transitioning, I did my master's in biomedical sciences just to help like focus heavily on the sciences. And that way present myself as a more admirable applicant for when it came to applying for medical school. Obviously, it's not mandatory or required that you need to do a master's. Some people just go straight from undergrad, but I felt as though in my circumstances it would be beneficial for me to do a master's program and gain some experience during that time, just because I thought I was missing different components in my application. And so I wanted to give myself the time and means to better amplify my application before competing against thousands and thousands of applicants for medical school. So that's kind of why I went that route specifically. I wasn't necessarily like drawn to sociology. It was very interesting for me, but it's not required that you have to do a bachelor's in a science field or like biology or chemistry or neuroscience, or you don't have to do a bachelor's in anything. The only thing that's required if your child is looking to go to medical school or they're interested in any pre-health field like dentistry or veterinary med or farm, like anything like that, you just have to make sure you meet your prerequisites. So most times, to kill two birds with one stone, they'll try and do a science related background to get those prereqs out the way, but it's not required. So if your child is interested in something else like architecture, or maybe they're interested in interior design or music or whatever it is, they can still do that, but also take their prerequisites. So if that is just a hobby that they enjoy and it interests them, they can transition into medicine or any pre-health field eventually in the future.
And did you always know that you wanted to pursue medicine, or was it something that you realized later?
I always knew. I think it's just I didn't know how to get there. That was the biggest challenge for me, at least on my academic journey. I always knew, I just didn't know what to do. So it was
Right.
it's always been a thing. My dad, when I would wake up in the morning, he would be, "Good morning, doctor. Good morning, doc." So it was just kind of in my ear all the time, and
Sure.
then I was good at it. So I felt like it was in the cards for me.
So one of my friends back in Saudi Arabia, I grew up there. I did my schooling there, and he used to joke with me. He said most of Sudanese people end up doctors, pharmacists, lawyers, dentists,
Engineers,
it's like
yep.
engineers. It's like you guys have like 8 or 9 fields that you never deviate from. And part of it is, I think, by nature, we're people who like education as a whole. We like to know.
Mhm.
We're very
Mhm.
educated, even as far as general knowledge, geography, politics,
Mhm.
and whatnot. And in the same time, obviously, it provides that stability in your career. And I think it's very important for us to have this conversation, because this segues into what we're doing today. Is that we know what path we took and what our parents took, but in the US it's a completely different level or a different system. So we obviously need to shift our thinking and start adapting to the system. And I think, let me ask you this: as a first generation student, what was the challenges you faced navigating colleges, career choices?
Yeah, so some of the challenges I had, I think, is just exposure. So when you're coming into college as a first generation student, you're already at a disadvantage because most of the students around you, like I stated before, their parents or their aunts or uncles or family members, friends, they have that mentorship as early as high school. So they already know exactly what to do. If they know what they want to do in life as far as career goes, they already have the upper hand because they have people who are in those spaces already who went through the same education system to give them that guidance early on. So I think mentorship was probably the biggest thing, and that didn't come for me until later down the road for me. And I think that was probably what kind of hindered my success. Instead of going straight through, or even just after I finished my master's directly, going straight through would have been obviously favorable. Nobody wants to spend extra years doing extra work, but alhamdulillah, like I was grateful. My journey is my journey, and I used that time to my advantage and gained a lot of skill set, a lot of practice, leadership experiences. So I think the biggest challenge was probably getting that mentorship early on, and having somebody guide you through, even if it's not like in the career. Like I think just leadership, mentorship, all of that early, it will set you apart from the rest of the crowd. And I think because I got that a little bit later, I still am very grateful for all of my mentors. I don't have just one, I have multiple. And I think because you need a mentor in every space, everywhere that you want to see yourself, you have to find someone in that field. And I think that's what helped me later on down the road. And I'm telling and urging everyone to find that mentor, whether that's from the SAPA youth chapter. Like we have a lot of valuable members in our organization that are willing to help. You just have to reach out to us. Like we're eager and ready to help. And of course, if we can help the next person get ahead, that's another win for the community. So I really push for mentorship, and I think it'll set you apart. So that's the number one biggest challenge I think I didn't have at the beginning. Obviously, resources, like if you're coming first generation or like your family immigrated here, you're not going to be well off, or at least that's what I assume. Most families are not coming here with millions of dollars and just ready to just set up in the big cities and everything like that. So that startup, I think it just allows us to be very humble and just be appreciative of what we had. But it also, it puts us at a disadvantage when we're trying to seek out these resources. But I think just having the discipline and that mindset, that go-getter type of mentality, I think it helped me, at least in my favor, and pushed me to just constantly seek out, how can I get the next thing? How can I get the next? So I think that worked in my favor personally, just because I'm very self-motivated, um, to seek out whatever it is that I want. Nothing is unattainable as long as you're committed and you're willing to put in the work for it. I think everything will work out in your favor, inshallah. Like that's something I'm very
So
big on.
so let me backtrack and go to the beginning. Like
Hmm.
I have two daughters. One of
Hmm.
them is already in the schooling system, and
Hmm.
the question I always ask myself is private schooling versus public schooling, for example,
Hmm.
because we're in the Middle East. We always
Hmm.
think of private schooling as a superior education system with more
Hmm.
resources and more support.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
obviously, I think even here you get more support. But the question is, how good is the public schooling system? Obviously, it varies by zip code, but I just want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, so for me at least, I didn't go to private school. I went to public school all from elementary all the way through high school. That was just, I think that was just the circumstances. I just went to public school. I didn't really get to choose, but I think I turned out well in the system. Alhamdulillah, like
Obviously,
I,
alhamdulillah.
I was when I started off, I think I was placed in like gifted immediately. So it was so funny because when I started out, because I guess when my parents filled out my paperwork and they put that I can speak Arabic and whatever, they automatically assumed that I didn't know how to speak English, which wasn't the case. But
You end
because
up
of
getting
this,
A plus in English.
they ended up putting me in ESOL. So that's typically for students who have like need like extra assistance with learning the English language. So they put me in that for the beginning years while I was in elementary school. And then it turned out they were like, wait a minute, this girl can speak English fine. She's actually well advanced in everything. So then the following year they placed me in gifted testing, and then I was in the gifted program at my school. So it was mainly for advanced students and people who were just like above the national the regional average or national average, whatever it is. And so they teach you like a year in advance of whatever your grade level is. So if I was in first grade, they were giving me second grade math, or if I was in third grade, fourth grade. So that also was very helpful. So if you want to seek out parents, how can you get your child tested for gifted testing? Especially, mashallah, I think Sudanese people as a whole, we're very smart, intelligent people. So it just naturally genetically passes down. So if you can get gifted testing early on, it can help you skip a couple grades. And I was supposed to skip a year, but we were in Sudan that summer. So by the time I came back, I missed the deadline. So I just let it be and just continued with my trajectory. But that's just another way to, get your child one step ahead in general. So um, I was doing that for a bit, and I enjoyed public school. I didn't mind it. Yes, you're exposed to a lot of different things, but I think that's just anywhere. Like I grew up in Florida, so each state's public system, education system is different. So you just have to know, like, your child has to know, like, from the household, like, what is the proper respect and manners and how to carry yourself when you're not home with your parents. I think that's just really important. So having that foundation, obviously, I knew stay away from kids who are causing trouble, stay away from kids who are involved in bad things. So I just had my small group of friends, and we just stuck together and we moved together every year and we progressed, and those became some of my lifelong best friends to this day. So I really think it's just um, very big on how you maneuver your child and how you raise them in the household. But I turned out fine. I enjoyed public school. I was involved. I felt safe. I didn't
I,
find
I
any
think I,
problems.
I think given your CV fine is an underestimate, but you know what? It's interesting because I think for people who are like thinking of getting married or have younger
Hmm.
children, in the US, something that I realized when I had my own kids is that, your zip code dictates a lot about your schooling system, which
Hmm.
is not the situation in other countries, right? So you pay a little bit more in rent, but you save in private schooling. I mean, obviously, private schooling in Texas, from at least what I looked up, is like $14,000 gets you into one of the best in Texas. But in
Yeah.
New York City, for example, kindergarten is like 46,000, and that was
Yeah.
before COVID. So the trade-off becomes is do you want to pay what was it 50,000 times 10 years, like $500,000 in school? It becomes a little bit too rich at least. So the second most important question, it was very interesting to hear your thoughts when I approached you to talk about this. We talked about extracurriculars.
Hmm.
So I want to hear from you. I want you to walk us through why they're important, what to choose, how you to choose.
Absolutely. So I am a big, big, big advocate for extracurriculars and allowing your child to explore their interests. So for me, at least, this started in middle school. I was just randomly placed in an elective class, and it happened to be band one, and I fell in love with it. And so I was really good, and I worked really hard at it. And I guess my band director, she saw the potential in me, and she just, out of her own time, she invested extra hours into me just privately, just to give me lessons on her own, which cost a lot of money. But she just knew, just given the circumstances of our school, like most of the kids there, it was a Title IX school. Most kids, they don't come from high socioeconomic statuses or anything like that. So she just did it on her own accord, out of her own generosity. And she just took me like an hour, 2 hours to teach me one on one. And from that, it blossomed, and I auditioned and I got into All State Band, which is like the highest level music program for your state. And so they have this in every state. And for me, music was a way for me to, I can't even explain it. And mind you, I don't want to be a musician, like full time career. Obviously, I'm trying to be a doctor.
Which
But
instrument is it, just for the audience?
oh, I play the clarinet. So I've been playing for over 14 years now. But it's so nice, and I really enjoyed it, and it gives you a sense of community, and you gain friends, and you gain leadership, and you gain a sense of like independence, and it pushes you because you can track your progress. You know, it's one of those things that you consistently get better. Like you're always a learner, and I think that just was a distraction from all the academic pressures and stress, and it was just a way for me to get away from all of that and enjoy something. And from that, it just blossomed into so many other avenues. So from this, in my high school, we were required to do like a community service project. And so my 10th grade year, I went back to my elementary school and I taught the kids music, and I taught them how to play instruments. So we did like percussion, drums, and things like that, just because it's easier to get the supplies for it. And so I borrowed instruments from my band director in my middle school, and we put on a big concert for their families, and we made
Beautiful.
t-shirts, and I taught them from zero all the way to a full performance. So it was so rewarding to see the kids just get engaged and involved. And then from them graduating, like the fifth graders into middle school, they're like, Miss Mohammed, I started and I joined band and I started playing an instrument, but I had to tell you. And to me, that was just so rewarding. Like all of the work that I was putting in, it didn't feel like work. It felt like fun, you know? And so I really, really am a big advocate for that. And from this project, and just me speaking passionately about it, when I got to high school, I was able to speak about my experiences. And when I was applying for scholarships, they were like, "Wow, like who helped you do this? Who told you to do it?" I said, "I did it by myself. I did it by myself, and I spent
It's
all these
amazing.
hours and time." And they were amazed, and they were wowed, and they were so happy and pleased. And then it helped me gain over like $17,000 of scholarship money just from talking about me involving myself in teaching these elementary students how to play music. So it opens up so many doors. It just, you have to be passionate about it. I don't believe in forcing your kids to do things just for the sake of doing it. It has to be something they enjoy. Obviously, I'm big on trial and error. So if you want to enroll your kids in music or enroll your kids in sports, I think do it, you know, like, especially I know everybody loves playing soccer, like the boys and stuff. So if they want to play soccer, encourage them to play soccer, encourage them to play basketball, whatever it is that they enjoy, get them active. I think having an outlet away from just academic and, oh, you need to do school is not going to get you anywhere here currently, just from based on my current experience. If they're, you know, eventually, like if the goal is medicine, they're not looking for somebody who just does academics. That's not going to cut it anymore. Like maybe it did back then, but right now, just in the current climate of things, they want well-rounded applicants. So you need to have something outside of, because one of the questions they ask you, okay, so what do you like to do for fun? uh, if you don't have anything to say, they're going to look at you like you're a robot and not a human. So I think it's important to encourage your kids to be a part of something else, whether that's, you know, music or sports, or maybe they're good at speech and debate, letting them join their local FBLA to do speech and debate, or maybe they want to swim or something, you know, just encourage and ask them. I think asking them questions to see their interest, I think will open up so many doors. And I think it'll break that ice and allow parents and their children to connect better, because I think that's also a problem within the Sudanese community. There's a disconnect. The kids don't feel like they can talk to their parents about everything because they're going to get shut down. So I think having a more approachable mentality about things outside of academics, I think will help bridge these gaps and allow for better relationships between the parent and the child too, as well. So
And
um,
I would tell you this because I want to touch on something you mentioned before we started doing this episode when we were talking about the prep that leads to the episode. My wife chose to send our daughter to gymnastic and swimming, and
Yes.
I think both are good. But I had a conversation with you about it, and you mentioned something very interesting about scholarships and how it relates to STEM versus arts. Would you like to touch on that a little bit?
Oh, yes. So, a lot of times when you're in like STEM related careers, I think one of the ways that they can distinguish, like, is this person a robot or is this person a human? They like to see that they're involved in STEAM. So that A in STEM becomes STEAM because there's a factor for the arts. And oftentimes the arts gets unnoticed. And I think that is something that just needs to be incorporated back in and pushed because it just allows for so much creativity and individualism and uniqueness amongst like your candidates. Like when I go into my interviews now, I talk about music. I bring it up every time. I bring it up every time, and they're wow. They're like, "Oh my goodness, you do this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I did this, and I enjoyed this." And it's just such a nice way to express yourself. And I don't think it's something that should be sheltered away or frowned upon or steered away because it does open so many doors, and it does allow your child to be like more versatile. Like, say your daughter, she's doing gymnastics and swimming, and she doesn't want to be a swimmer, or she doesn't. She can be the next Gabby Douglas. She could be the next Simone Biles. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Allow them. But if she's good at it and she enjoys it, and it's just a way for her to be as a release, then let it just be her hobby. By all
Not not
means, you
not
know.
only that, what I noticed is when I asked my wife why gymnastics, she said something very interesting. It came through. She said she feels that if she goes back in time and does something like gymnastics, she probably would have been more brave or more social or more capable. Because when you have that experience, like I watch my daughter doing gymnastics in her training for an hour, and she goes up on the high beam, she falls
Mhm.
down, she just brushes it off, she
It
she
goes
does the
right back.
balance beams and stuff, and goes right back. And I feel that her personality changed a little bit. She's more assertive, she's more confident, and I think that's something we miss, because as you said, as Sudanese people, we're more into reading knowledge, but we become unidimensional, and we sort of deprive ourselves from other outlets that could give us a different experience altogether.
No, I agree. I agree. I think even for myself, compared to my other siblings, I'm out of the spectrum, the most extroverted. The most
Yeah,
extroverted. I'm
yeah.
probably the loudest one out of all of my siblings. But I'm not saying like, you need everybody, all our girls to be super loud and super out there, because, there's certain levels just we have to maintain and keep things, at home at base. But I do think I agree. Like it allows us to be more brave. It allows us to be more fearless, and it allows us to be able to like stand up and stick up for yourself, because there's going to be times where things are challenging, and nobody's going to fight for you. And especially with, I don't know if I can talk about politics, but the current climate of the way things are changing right now in the academic system, like a lot of opportunities and resources for minority students, especially in like the collegiate level and above, are getting robbed away from us. So a lot of times we're going to have to be the ones to be fighting for the things that were given to us before and are currently being stripped away as we speak. So I just, I brace myself and brace my younger siblings for whatever the future looks like. But I think, staying involved is a great way to um, maintain this spark in us. And for girls and for guys both, like just finding something, whatever it is, even if it's something like chess. I enjoy playing chess. Yes, this isn't a loud screaming sport or anything, but it's a game that requires a lot of skill set. Like, but just whatever it is, I just say I think having the support of your parents in whatever it is that you're doing, obviously something good. We don't encourage you to do anything bad, but I think it's super important, and it helps develop like the character in you, and it takes you so many doors, opens so many doors for you, and that's probably the biggest takeaway that I have as far as extracurriculars.
So now let's move up a little bit. Let's say now you have a child, or you have the younger Ola
Hmm.
who's going into high school, who wants to do something competitive, medicine, law, pharmacy, dentistry, whatever it is.
Hmm.
What do you think that child should do? What should they sort of work hard on or try to distinguish themselves on?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing obviously is academics. You want to do well academically in all of your classes. So if you can shoot for that 4.0 GPA, like shoot for it, like push really, really hard. But even for me, at the time when I was at my high school, it was ranked like number 8 in the nation. It's went down since then. I'm like, I've checked now, but it was a very difficult high school. And I think going to those schools in your state that are difficult, I think that's a stepping stone in itself, because it helps prepare you mentally for whatever's to come in college. And so being there, it helps you develop, your work ethic, and then finding balance outside of that. So I was a student. Number one, I did well. Alhamdulillah. I think I got maybe like a 3.7 GPA when I graduated, which
Awesome.
isn't, to me at that time, I was like, oh my God, I can't do this, because I have an older sister and she was getting the 4.0s and I was just constantly, in her shadow. So I always felt like I wasn't good enough, but I
Yeah.
mean, like it did what it needed to do, and it got me into
Yeah.
school, multiple offers. So it's not the end of
Yeah.
the world. So let me also reiterate, it's not the end of the world if they don't have a 4.0. They shouldn't be beaten up mentally and considered a failure academically. That's not the case. And so academics is number one. Number two, I think, what I was saying, extracurricular. So joining band, joining chorus, joining a sports team, joining debate, finding something. Every school has different clubs. And I think, encouraging your child to do one or two of them, maybe three, depends. I don't even know. I think in high school, I did band. I was like a safe school ambassador. I did this thing called the after show, which was like the school news comedy show or something. I was in like National Junior Honor Society. Um, I did my after school with the band kids at the elementary school. So I did like maybe like 5 or 6 things, but over the span of the 4 years, I don't recommend doing 10 things at once just to be a resume filler and overwhelm yourself, because then you're going to fail academically. So finding something, and then I was like Black Student Union president, because we didn't even have any organizations for like minorities like that. So I joined that. I did like my school's heritage assembly. So I represented Sudan, and spread awareness. Anytime I can spread awareness about Sudan, I'm going to do it.
That's beautiful. That's
So,
beautiful.
just finding different niches to like express yourself and find your passion, and then grow. I think the biggest thing, number three, is leadership. So after your extracurricular, you need leadership. So they want to see that, from freshman year to senior year, how did you develop? So when I joined these organizations, I was just a regular member at first. And then by the time I got to my senior year, I was band president, I was BSU president, I was what was I doing? Band president, BSU president. It's something else. I forgot. But they want to see that upward trajectory. Like you start as a member, and then you join a committee, and you're doing well in the committee. Then you maybe the next year you're the head of that committee, and then just working your way up the ladder. I think that's really, really, really admirable, and it shows, because they want student leaders. They don't want just regular. Because then that's how you
Everything.
stand out. You know what I'm saying? This is how you stand out. You want that leadership. So number three, I'd say leadership. Number four, this is optional, everybody's different. But again, I had that like self motivation. I got a job when I was in high school. So I started off working at American Eagle at the local mall nearby my house. So I did that maybe like my junior year and senior year. So I was working like 39 hours or 38 hours like during the summertime, because that was the closest
Beautiful.
thing to full time without getting benefits.
Yeah. Ah, so that's what they do, right?
And so I was working my minimum wage job, and I did that for some time. And then when school started, I was doing Saturdays and Sundays, but then I saw it was too much even with everything. So then my mom was like, you either need to quit or you need to work one day a week. Tell them those are your circumstances. And I told them, I said, listen, guys, my mom told me I can only work one day a week. You either take it or leave it. And they said, we want you. So we're going to take you for that one day a week. So then, I did that and I maintained it. So when it came down to the wire, um, this is another thing that I can talk about. They're like, wow, you are doing your academics and you're involved in school and you're able to work to support yourself or support your family. Because in some circumstances, sometimes it's not as fortunate. Like it was optional for me to work, but some kids, they have to, because they have to help support their family. It just depends on your circumstances. But for me, it was a choice. So I did it, and I enjoyed it. Like I enjoyed having my own sense of money, because then I felt responsible for my money.
So,
you know?
and of course, you still took money from daddy and mommy,
Of course,
obviously.
of course. Listen, I'm not gonna do
That doesn't go away. So I remember one of my friends had a child, and his dad he paid some money for whatever ceremony it was. I think it was Simaya or something.
Okay,
And
yeah.
then the dad told him, he was like, I don't know when I'm gonna stop paying for you. He said, when the last box of diapers is done. so
I
so
promise it
one
didn't stop
one
then.
thing I want to touch on, because I'm hoping that this episode is gonna resonate well with our members, and they're going to want to share it with their kids as well to learn from your experience. I noticed that a lot of first generation Americans, they're not putting effort into learning Arabic. They do understand it fully. but they're not putting a lot of effort into talking. But at least from my perspective, the more languages you have, the more competitive your resume is. Am I right? Or
Oh,
what's
no,
your
I
thoughts?
definitely agree. I think it's super important. And then even as I get older, I wouldn't say like my Arabic is perfect, but I think it's definitely compared when I'm looking at the difference between like the older set of kids in our family compared to my younger siblings, it's a big drastic gap. And I don't know where the gap happened. I'm still trying to figure it out. But as far as like speaking and understanding and everything like that, it's a big divide between me and my youngest sister. And I think part of that comes with going to Sudan. So when I was younger, I'm not gonna lie, I did not enjoy going to Sudan because it was very rough. Going to the village of Haras is not easy. Because my family were from North Kordofan, so we're from Al Ubaid and Abu Haras. Like that's primarily where my family reside, and so it's a big difference, like from living in Khartoum or anything like that. You know, there's no the electricity cutting out, and I'm just like, oh my god, this is so rough. But the older I got, and every time we would go, I became more and more appreciative and like more humble, and it just makes you enjoy like life more because of your circumstances. Alhamdulillah, like here in America is completely different than what it is in Sudan. And then you enjoy the things that actually matter, like your family and spending time with them and making memories versus just whatever we deal with our first world struggles here. So I think learning languages is super important. So for me, obviously, I have English, I have Arabic, and I have Spanish. I learned Spanish was I was in high school for like the 4 years, and then after that, I kept maintaining it. And then at my jobs, I would like speak with the clients and the patients and whoever I could practice my Spanish with. I would just practice it with them because again, it makes you an asset. And then later on, whatever job you get, that is a pay increase as well because you're valuable, it's resourceful. And I think it's so important as far as like learning Arabic because it keeps you connected to the culture. Like there is a cultural divide. Like even with us, we talked about it in the GA, the last GA in Chicago about being a third culture kid and what that means and how that affects us and mentality and like, oh, when you're in America, you're too Sudanese, and when you're in Sudan, you're too American. Like so you never know where you fit in as far as your community. But I think just trying to navigate that space and just taking it all in because at the end of the day we're different. We're
Sure,
unicorns.
sure,
We have
sure.
different identities from
And,
where we
and
are.
and I think when you learn a different language, the jokes are not the same when they're
Oh
translated.
yeah, oh yeah,
The sayings are not the same. I think it adds perspective, it adds to your knowledge, and it's a different way of thinking altogether, right? I
absolutely.
I was talking to one of my colleagues on Friday, and we're having, I don't remember what was the conversation, but they were talking about how the psychology is shifting through generations and how, like compared to older generations, that person felt that younger generations are more sensitive, and that
Mm,
sensitivity sometimes can impede the way you interact with the world, right? Because if you're living in a shell and people don't want to sort of hurt your feeling, they might be afraid to give you advice or constructive criticism and whatnot. And I told them, I don't know if people realize, in Sudan or even in the Middle East, we don't have the equivalent of I feel. We just say the sensation, like I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm
yeah,
upset, I'm right,
yeah.
I'm lying, I'm honest, but we never say I feel hungry, to be very odd. أنا حاسي إني جعان, right? This is like, and it's like
Yeah,
there is
yeah,
no,
yeah,
you either
yeah.
have it or none. There is nothing in between,
There's no in between.
So that's where the culture comes. But now I want to ask you another important question is, okay, I'm a parent, I have a child in high school, assuming that I have the necessary means. Do you think having extra tutoring or one of those like college placement services that pops up on my Instagram all the time, are they helpful? Are they not? What do you think?
I personally think this is just my personal opinion again, like your child, if you feel like your child needs this extra assistance because they're struggling, by all means go for it. But if you feel like your child is doing well, they're meeting up academically and everything, I think it's a scam. I think it's a waste of money and I don't think it's worth spending your thousands and thousands of dollars. You can save that and use that for their future, whatever it is that they need it for, emergency fund or whatever. I think those programs are teaching you the same thing that I'm going to be able to tell your child and everybody else in SAPA Youth and whoever can tell your child to do the same thing, but they're charging you thousands of dollars to do it. So I don't recommend doing those programs. So for me at least, I think it was my junior, I can't remember. I think it's your junior year when you take the SAT or junior or senior year in high school. They had like a prep program come to our school. So depending on your socioeconomic status, like I was able to get it at a reduced cost. I think only for $30 or something super cheap compared to like the cost of the actual program. And so that was like every Saturday we went to do SAT prep. We went to the school, we spent like a full school day there, and they taught us how to take the test. So I think, investing in programs like that, yes, if you are like in a different tax bracket that you don't qualify for these opportunities and resources, by all means, yes, do them, because that's what's going to help you set yourself apart. But if you're just having someone that you're paying to be a life coach for your child, I think that's a scam. And I know,
Absolutely.
no
Yeah.
offense
Yeah.
to anybody who's doing it, but I just think there's so many people here accessible that can do it for free. And they can tell you, this is where I messed up. This is where I messed up, and this is why I messed up. And this is what I would have done if I would have went back in time, and da 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 da, and given the outline. So for right now, I am very, very on it like a hawk on my younger siblings. I'm like, listen, this is what I did. This is what you don't need to do. I tried this. This wasted my time. Do this, 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 this. And I'm not encouraging or like putting my influence onto my sisters. Like, you need to go into medicine. You need to, no, no, no. I'm like, this is what you need to do to just be successful in general. Whatever it is that you decide to take your route, but this is what you need to be doing. And so I think that approach is very helpful, and just keeping it in general as like, this is for your success. You need to be doing this. You need to involve yourself like this, or you need to be, for something as simple as when you're in fifth grade. I don't know if they have it in Texas, but in Florida, we have the safety patrols. I don't know if you guys have that as well, like the fifth graders.
I'm not sure. I mean, my kids are younger than fifth grade, but I think
Oh,
they
okay.
do because that's
The
why I
the
live in
people with
Jersey.
like
So, oh
the
yeah,
the yellow belts. Okay, so
yeah.
that's like the smallest form and introduction to leadership. So I did safety patrol when I was in fifth grade, and it's
Were
something
you
that
were you in it for the satchel and the pictures, or did you really enjoy it?
I a little bit of both. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was so cool. I was like, oh my god, look at these people in the safety patrol. I want one. And also because in fifth grade, like around December, January time, you get to go on a safety patrol trip. So you get to go to Washington D.C. So that's like the big trip. Like, oh my god, we're going to D.C. So then you go and do all the tours, and they take you to the White House and the monuments and all that. So I really wanted to go, and of course. Going to that, you have to be a safety patrol. So I signed me up. Fourth grade, you wrote your essay application, and that's like, it starts early. You learn to, vouch for yourself. You have to write, why are you a leader, why are you a leader, and why are you capable, and why do you think you should be a safety patrol? And from there, like, it builds. Then the next thing, whatever the next thing is in middle school, and whatever the next thing is in high school. So for me, doing that was like the biggest thing. And so you have something to look forward to. You're motivated. Like, you have goals. I think being goal oriented and finding those little pieces can help your child grow and advance in so many ways. But I feel like I'm sidetracked. What was the original question?
No, so listen. I like that. That's the whole purpose of having this casual talk, right? Because you're sharing stuff that other people don't know about, you know. So
Yeah.
let me ask you another question then,
Mhm.
in the same theme of keeping with high school.
Mhm.
Gap year. I have my child is nowhere near graduating high school, but I have my own personal beef with gap year after high school. I understand gap year after bachelor's or
Mhm.
whatever,
Mhm.
but in my humble opinion is, why don't we do a year of general, do a diploma, do something that can add to the CV? I mean, at the end of the day, instead of doing nothing at home, you can do something that
Mhm.
adds to your CV.
Mhm.
So if I want my child to think of eliminating that gap year, I help them with all the stuff that you recommended, the extracurriculars, their academics, and all of that.
Mhm.
Um, how can I help them navigate the college selection? Not assuming that they know what they want, obviously.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I think the gap between high school and college, I think that's very unlikely. I think most times, just based on, just maybe this is my biased opinion, I feel most times everybody goes straight through. Like, everyone's applying to college. It's like the norm. So because of that, I think it's a lot easier. But what I can say to, like, how you can stay on top of it or catch it early, the signs or whatever, um, utilize your school's resources. So every school has guidance counselors. I know from my school, we were a lot smaller. So we had 4 guidance counselors, and they broke us up based on our last names. And that guidance counselor's job is to prepare your child to go and apply for the college application program services. They have scholarship resources. They have university databases and specific programs. Like, you can tell your child, set up a meeting with them, or if you want to be included in that, like, you can set up a time to be with your guidance counselor. Most times it's going to just be the child and the guidance counselor, but for me, that's how they helped me figure out how to get my fee waivers for taking the SAT, ACT, which are like the 2 standardized exams that you have to take prior to applying for college. They told me how to get my waivers, and I think it gave me up to 4 for each exam. I didn't use them all, but like the fact that
What
I
does a
even had,
waiver mean?
So a waiver is it's like a form that you fill out. Just I don't know what the qualifications are nowadays, but it's a way for you to get this test for free. So I could take
Oh,
each test
nice.
for free 4 times. I didn't use
Beautiful.
all 4 times because one, I didn't want to sit for an exam that many times, and but to know that it was a resource there, like, if you don't do well the first time, okay, try it again the second time, and it's free. So then this is not a burden on your parents to pay for it again and whatever, whatever, because then you also have to pay to send your scores to these schools when you're applying. Your guidance counselor is there to give you these resources to help you. So my guidance counselor helped me find one of my scholarships that I applied for, the George Snow Scholar, where I talked about the music and my community service and my leadership, and I was originally I was applying for just that one, but because the donors heard my story and they heard all that I was doing, I got a second one because they were like, "We want her." So that's what I'm saying.
So,
Like, you just have to be yourself and talk passionately about the things that you genuinely enjoy. It'll show from your pitch in your voice and your tone and how animated you are about talking about it. It'll show every single time. So your guidance counselor is a big help as far as preparing yourself. And then I know for us at our school, they would pull us all out of our English courses, and the guidance counselor would come. They would sit us all in a computer lab, and they would help us fill out our FAFSA, which is I don't know the acronym what it stands for, but it basically helps you fill out
federal
your,
student, federal student
yeah,
financial aid or something like that.
something like that. Yes. So everybody has to fill out their FAFSA before they can apply for school, so that way you can qualify for federal aid and grants, which is like money that you don't have to pay the government back to fund your education. Alhamdulillah, for me, my university bachelor's degree was 100% free tuition, free everything.
Amazing.
They paid me to go to school, so the money that they were giving me extra in scholarship, that was going towards my rent, because I didn't live at home. I was about like 4 hours away from home at my university, so it paid for my rent, it helped me pay for my groceries, it helped me just extra spending money for whatever I wanted to use it for. But that's why, like, if you work hard in high school to apply for these scholarships, I just applied for everything, even if I didn't feel qualified, I applied.
And your guidance counselor is the one who told you where to apply, right? Because that's a
They
question that.
So they told me about like the two big ones. Like at the time, I don't know if I don't think it's here anymore, but there's like the Gates Scholar, the Gates Millennium Scholarship. That one like pays for all of your schooling. If you say I'm gonna just do a bachelor's degree and I'm gonna take a break and then I'm gonna take a 2 years off or something, and now actually I want to go get my master's, and actually now I want to get my PhD, they'll pay for everything, beginning to end. But I don't know if it exists anymore because
I mean,
it
things
might have
are, things
ended.
are things are changing, but
Things are
yeah.
changing, but there's so many resources like that. So a lot of times, within your local region, there's like different sororities and fraternities too, which are like historically like Black sororities and fraternities. They have their individual scholarships too. Like even if it's something as small as $1,000, $2,000, $4,000, like one-time scholarships. I just kept applying for them. Like I just applied for them, and those organizations are very big on like scholarship and service and how you serve your community and stuff like that. So if your child is working with SAPA, or if they're working with like their local food pantry or something, or they're working with their local masjid, like anything like that, where that you see you're giving back to the community, and like this is a community oriented person, it gives them the hope that like later down the road they're going to come back and do the same thing, because they're already establishing these habits early on. So I applied to those, and then a lot of times like the schools will send me emails like, oh, apply for this scholarship. Most time kids are just lazy, they want to go play the game or they want to go hang out or whatever. I just made it like a personal goal for myself. But see, this is young, naive me. I was under the impression, because I have an older sister, I was like, oh my God, my parents are gonna go broke because they're paying for my sister to go to college, and now they're gonna pay for me. And in my head, I thought I was this burden. I thought it was this burden to my family, because now they have to put two daughters through college at the same time. And so for me, that fueled me. I was like, I can't let my parents go broke. I can't. So I just started applying for a bunch of scholarships.
And listen, it paid off as long as they didn't have to pay anything.
No, they didn't pay
Yeah,
anything for
that's
alhamdulillah.
good.
Like they didn't pay
Alhamdulillah.
anything for none of my siblings, and I I was just like very big on scholarship. So they have like different scholarship, what do you call it, like websites where you can go online and apply. And then a lot of times, like I think the easiest thing is like going to your guidance counselor. They'll tell you about the local ones. And I was a part of this program called Take Stock in Children. I don't know if it's everywhere, but I know here in Florida, in like Palm Beach County, it's like a mentorship program where they match you up with someone. It's usually like a college grad or just somebody who's in their gap year or something. They're just like working with the community. I started this program as early as like seventh grade, all the way until you graduated from high school. I didn't feel as though like my mentor necessarily like helped me, but she was just like encouraging. Like, so she would meet with me once a week during lunchtime, and we would just sit and chat. But she was like, "Oh my gosh, Ola, like I feel like I don't need to tell you anything. You already do everything on your own." And I'm just like, "I'm sorry."
It's just, she's cheering you on, basically.
Yeah, so she was just like my little cheerleader in the back.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
if there was any questions I had, she would be like, okay, I'm gonna go and see if I can find the answer for you. But I would meet with her, and then outside of like meeting with her once a week, every week, I had like once a month or once every other month, they had like general workshops. And those workshops are where, me and my parents, they would come to those workshops because they were teaching us how do you make sure your child is prepared for college? Like, what do they need to be filling out from right now? Like, how do I help prepare them? And so it was like a Florida prepaid scholarship. And so that covered a good chunk of money for my education afterwards too. And it's just so many resources out there locally. You just have to like seek them out. And if you don't have the help yourself, going to your school and asking personally, they will give you the resources because they're required by their job description to help you with that. So that was like one way for me to get the information, and the other way was just opening my mouth and asking questions. I am not one to steer away. I ask questions all the time, and I think that is my biggest advantage to get me to where I am right now because I'm always asking. And if I don't know, I'll find somebody who does know, and then I'll get back to whoever it is that needs it, or if it's for myself, I got my answer. So I used to ask my teachers all the time. I'm like, hey, Dr. Briscoe, do you know how I can get another scholarship? Do you know anybody who's, helping first generation college students? And then, oh yeah, one of my friends, she has this nonprofit that she's working on that helps kids that are, giving back to their send it my way. And then I was just applying on the weekends, like when I had free time. If I wasn't sleep deprived, I was just working on scholarships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or busy spending that money you made working in the weekend, right? So so let me ask you two important questions. Knowing what you know now,
Yes.
if you met the 9-year-old Ola,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give her that you think would change the trajectory, make it easier, make it faster, make it better in any way, shape, or form?
Mm. Okay, so 9-year old Erla, she was good. Alhamdulillah, she was doing great. So I think she did everything she needed to do. Like, just keep going, keep being great at it, and don't discourage yourself. Like, I think the way, but that also, like, again, this is a personality thing. So if, say, let's scratch that. I can answer this question for older version of me because I
Yeah,
felt like
yeah.
I wish I had spoken to my college self before talking whatever. But I'll go back to, if I was this humble, like, lost and I didn't know what to do and confused or whatever, if I'm talking
Mm.
to that version of myself
Yeah.
at 9-year-old, I'd be like, listen, open your mouth and go talk to your teacher. Go talk to your older sibling. Go talk to, you know, um, somebody that you feel comfortable to talk to, confide in, and ask them, how can you help yourself? How can you find these opportunities? I think just being vocal is the first thing, because a lot of times people don't know where to look and they get overwhelmed and then they shut down. And then once you shut down, you're not going to be able to get anything achieved until letting time pass. The time is going to keep going. But if you don't take those steps, it's important. And then ask your parents if you could try something new for once. I think just trying something, you see something online and you're like, oh my God, like, I want to learn how to play the cello, or oh my God, like, I want to try playing softball. Can I do that? Like, asking and see what your answer is, and then go from there. And try it. Okay, you start running track and you realize you don't like running track anymore because this is just so much, and like, I'm not actually fast and I don't see myself getting better. Of course, it's okay to try things out and not like it. It's okay to experiment. I think the best time to experiment is from elementary to high school, because that's when everything is paid for. That's when everything is free. That's when schools encourage you to do everything. When you get older, that's when, like, it comes out of your own pocket. And if you want to say you want a career in the athletics field or something, you need that development since elementary. So if you find a niche and it's working and you're doing well at it, like, keep at it. The worst they can say to you is no, but don't let yourself be the reason to tell yourself no.
I
Yeah.
remember when I finished medical school, one of my relatives said, this is you're so happy, but this is the end of the paved way, and now the dirt road starts, right? يا دوب الزلط انتهى ودي بداية الردمية عرفتي؟
Yep, yep.
ف I think it's very important, as you said, to utilize those, times that you're carefree basically, right? You just have to worry about going to school, coming back from school, and doing your
Yep.
homework, and that's that.
Hmm.
So the other question I'm going to ask you, what would you advise me as a parent to have their kids in school? Now, obviously, you're going to love your kids, you're going to, help them, stay on top of them, but what special advice would you give me apart from the standards? Is there anything specific you can think of?
I think stay open-minded and stay encouraging. I think one of the biggest things for me growing up that like really fueled me was having that um what is the word I'm looking for? Just having that support, the admiration. Like I just felt like my parents were my biggest cheerleaders. So something as small as just showing up to the honorable ceremony. Yes, it's in the middle of the morning and you're tired and you just dropped off your kids to school and now you just want to relax, or making the time to show up. That was just so meaningful to me. So I have so many pictures of honorable ceremonies every 9 weeks or every what is it, trimester or not, whatever it was. My parents showed up. Any ceremony, one or the other or both, they would come and support me. And to me, that was just, it was so rewarding. And I just was so happy to see them there. Like you look in the crowd and your parents there to cheer you on, to be your cheerleader. And then it just makes you want them to keep coming in. I want them to keep, I want them to see that I was number one. Like when I was in middle school, I got the award. I got called down to, this is a funny story. I got called down to the principal's office. And usually when you go to the principal's office, that's a
It's
bad
about
thing.
things.
Like you did something wrong. And I was so nervous. They're like, can you send Miss Mohammed to the principal's office? I said, oh my God. Everybody's looking at, ooh, Ola, what did you do? I said, oh my God, what did I do? So I come down to the principal's office, and I loved my principal at the time. He was probably one of my favorite people ever when I was in school. He's like, Ola, because they don't know how to say my name properly. I tell everybody call me Ola. They're like, Ola, do you know what you just did? I said, no, what did I do? What did I do? I'm on the verge of crying because I'm very emotional. He was like, you just got the highest FCAT scores in the whole school. And I was like, oh my God, no way. And, I was jumping for joy and I was so excited. And he's like, so what's going to happen? I said, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? He's like, follow me. Then he takes me into this room. It's filled with like, at the time, the Wii was a big thing. Like the Wii, Nintendo DS, XL, boom boxes, games, everything. And I just looked at it. I was like, I'm in a candy shop or a La La Land or something. And he was like, okay, because you got the highest FCAT scores, you get to pick whatever you want from this room. I said, wow, really? So at the time, I was like, okay, I already have a Wii at home, but let me think. I said, what's the most expensive thing here? So I go and I grab the Wii again because I was like, okay, like we already have one here at the house. I can give this to my cousins back in Sudan because they don't have one.
That's very
So I
sweet.
got the Wii and then I left and he was like, guess who I'm bringing in next? I said, who are you bringing in next? He said, I'm bringing in your sister. She got the highest in her grade level. I said, oh.
Yeah, then you should have planned it with your sister. But if I was you, I would have taken his car keys. That would have been the most valuable thing in the room.
Yeah, so it
Yeah.
was just so nice. And like even little moments like that, I think also like where schools reward their students, I think that's just really like it helps student in themselves like be academically driven and motivated to like constantly outdo themselves. So like that little tidbit story, whatever, it just sat with me. And then like I just always try to find the good after whatever it is. Like reward myself. Like so if you can reward your kids after, something major milestone, accomplishments or whatever, I think it's a great way for them to like maintain that. And I think naturally in nature, like humans, we want that reward factor. Like after you just did this hard thing and now here's your reward for what you just did. So rewarding your kids is really important. Showing up for your kids is really important. So having my parents at like my senior night for when I was graduating high school and they got to walk on the football field with me and left and right and they say my name like, oh, graduating Ola Mohamed, she's going to the University of Florida. Like, let's give her a round of applause for her last performance. And like the whole stadium or whatever is cheering for you. And here's my parents smiling left and right. And so, it's just little things like that, just core memories. You're going to look back when you're 25, 26, whatever. And you're like, wow, I really enjoyed these experiences. Like it was stressful, but it was worth it. And I have these memories to take on for me, whatever I'm feeling like I'm having a hard time and just try and find that reward factor. So showing up is a big deal.
That's an amazing journey, honestly, Ola. I mean, for those listening, we know that education is a big investment. I mean, it's not just a financial investment, but it's emotionally taxing, right? Between
Hmm.
work and having to care for your kids and whatnot. But, Ola have said it, and I just want to emphasize it. We have an amazing youth chapter. I think the youth chapter is one of the strongest accomplishment that SAPA has achieved by being able to engage the youth. And it's one of those self-sustaining ecosystems. I mean, they're very robust, they're very hardworking, creative, and you're getting free advice that others will have to pay money and pay a lot of money, and even after you pay, you don't know what quality of advice you're getting. So please feel free to reach out to Ola or to any of us in the board of directors, and we'll gladly link you up with Ola and the youth chapter. I would like to thank you so much, Ola. It's been a wonderful hour. I mean, this is part of why myself and Mohammed Abdelgader, my colleague in the career development office, we're very adamant that this will be the first episode because we felt that this is the one closest to everybody's heart, and you have delivered. I mean, you've given us great advice. Thank you for sharing your journey, your wisdom with us today. And I would like to thank you and thank our listeners for tuning in, for listening to us. And obviously, if they found this episode helpful, they need to keep tuning in, and we're going to have more and more interesting topics. Thank you so much, Ola. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and I'm so excited to be a part of this Kickstart campaign. And like I said, if you or someone you know has a Sudani child that is interested in pre health, it doesn't have to be just medicine, it could be dental, pharmacy, public health, mental health, anything like that. Tell them to join SAPA Youth. They can connect with us. They can find us on social media, and we're everywhere on the SAPA page as well. We are more than happy to help in whatever way we can. We're always looking for ways to give back to our community in whatever way that we can. And I think maybe this might be the formation of SAPA Junior, which could be for the kids that are in high school or the kids that are in middle school or whatever, so they can be matched up. We don't know. Stay tuned. We don't know what the future holds, but I think this would be a great initiative for us to have. And I look forward to seeing the success of our community and inshallah, free Sudan.
Free Sudan, inshallah. So, if you found this episode helpful, please share it with your fellow SAPA members or any member of the Sudanese community or any parents in general, for all that it matters, whom you feel that might benefit from this episode. Please stay tuned for more episodes as we continue to explore topics that matter. Ola, we're definitely going to have another sit down to talk about colleges and stuff because I think we're running out of time for this one. But until next time, thank you, Ola.
Thank you. Bye.